Good morning. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning for the Oregon State Board of Agriculture meeting. Today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. I'm Elin Miller, Chair of the Board, and this meeting is now called to order. I'd like to begin by asking Department of Agriculture Board Coordinator Carla Valnes to review a few housekeeping items for us right now. Carla?
Good morning. Just a reminder to please mute your phones or computer audio during the call. Also, if you're joining the call by video conference, we request only board members and presenters to turn on your camera during the call. If you are joining by conference call only, pre-meeting materials are posted on the ODA website at odadirect/board agriculture or will be posted after the meeting. And a reminder that this meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, Carla. Would you also now please call the roll for introductions? I'll begin. Elin Miller, Farmer, Umpqua.
Chad Allen is excused. Barbara Boyer.
Good morning, Barbara Boyer, and I sit here today as the chair of the Soil and Water Conservation Commission.
Brian Harper is on his way, I believe. Shante Johnson.
Good morning, Shante Johnson, Farmer, Corbett, Oregon.
Miguel Lopez.
Good morning, Miguel Lopez, public member, Grape Grower in the Willamette Valley.
Eric Oram.
Eric Oram, Farmer, Heppner, Oregon.
Luisa Santa Maria.
Good morning, Luisa Santa Maria, public member, Oregon State University.
Randy Savati. Josh Zielinski.
Josh Zielinski, nurseryman, Salem, Oregon.
Brian Harper.
Brian Harper, Farmer, Junction City.
Dean Simonich.
Stacy Simonich, Dean of Oregon State University's College of Agricultural Sciences and Director of the Oregon Agricultural Experiment Station.
Acting Director Bill Ryan.
Good morning, everybody.
Let's see, if you're joining us in person, we'd like to remind you to please sign in on the sign-in sheet on the table out front. And if you're joining the meeting online, if you would add your name to the chat box, that would be great. Do we have anyone on the conference call only? I don't believe so this morning. We'll just do a quick round of introductions in the room. Chris, do you want to start?
Chris Benman, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
Isaac Stapleton, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
Bill Miller.
Warren Henderson, Deputy Director of the Department of Ag.
Jonathan, Assistant Director.
Okay. Note that the public comment is scheduled for today at 10 a.m. We've received no written public comments and no request to provide verbal comments. If you would like to sign up this morning to provide verbal comments in person, please use the sign-up sheet on the table prior to the comment period. If you are joining the meeting online, make a request using the chat box, including your name and organization. Comment time will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The meeting is being recorded, and board members and guests, please state your name for the record before you begin your comments. And before we really launch into the meeting, I just really want to say welcome to everyone. And I can recall back during COVID when I joined this board, and I think it was about 18 months to 2 years before I had a chance to actually meet my fellow board members. And I knew at the time, I was so interested in being involved in the Board of Agriculture, but you select paths in life and decide to make commitments of time for certain things. And I just say this from my standpoint, I am honored to serve as chair. And I have definitely chosen the right path of spending time to focus on the important things in agriculture, and especially getting to know my fellow board members. So I really thank you all for that. The other thing, it's been a pleasure having a chance to get to know Lauren from his leadership as acting director, and I wanted to just acknowledge that that he, stood in filled great shoes of Alexis, and was here, and also welcome now to Brian. Or as Bill as acting director now, and we'll be hearing a little bit more from him later. So again, thank you. But the last person I just want to say a big thank you to is Luisa Santa Maria. She did a wonderful job as our chair this last year. I know I learned a lot from her, and I know you'll continue to contribute as a very active board member. And so you can kind of throw spitballs or whatever at me if I'm not doing the right thing. So anyway, with that, we'll go ahead and move into the first agenda item. And so I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Barbara Boyer seconds.
So moved by Brian, Barbara Boyer second. Any further discussion? Additions, corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Or raising your hand if you're on the screen.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, or raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Great. Next item, introduction of Director Bill Ryan. And I'd really like to, hopefully we'll hear a little bit about you and then also some of your impressions of your time with us here at the Department of Ag. So.
Yes, thank you, Elin. Yeah, so Bill Ryan, my day job is as the Deputy Director of Operations at the Oregon Department of State Lands, where I oversee the real property program that manages common school trust lands to generate revenues for schools, as well as the removal fill wetlands and waterways protection program. And so that's my background. And I was asked to really get an opportunity to serve on an interim basis or as an acting director to basically give Lauren some breathing room, because as you know, it'd been a long time since Alexis had left and hadn't filled that directorship. The big news is, of course, everybody's heard is that Lisa Sharpelos Hansen is going to be the new director, and she's coming back December 1st, and so that's great, and the department will be in good hands. Someone who really knows the ins and outs of the department. It's been a really amazing experience for me because I was really only familiar with the water quality program, and I knew Isaac, and because of the integration of that with the Department of State Lands Removal Fill regulatory program, and of course was aware of Oregon agriculture. I drive through it every day and enjoy that. I always take the country road on my way to places when I can, but I've really it's been striking the diversity of the agricultural products and associated programs that the department manages and promotes. And also that, using that word promotion, it's that promotion piece of the mission that I just was not aware of. And it's all around me now. And now that I've been exposed to it, I see it everywhere, the hard work that the department does and the producers do to make the case for Oregon agriculture. But I'm really struck by how much effort goes into the various, we have a lot of niche products. I'm telling you this, right? But we have boutique agriculture is the term I used last night. And the way you market that and the way you promote that is very different than the way you market bulk commodities. And so I'm just really impressed with the job that the department does. And of course, all the food safety and food quality inspections and those sort of things that occur, which I knew happened, but I didn't understand the context of those happening basically so that you can promote agriculture and agricultural products. And so it's just it's been really an eye opener, and I'm really impressed by the hard work and the thoughtful effort that everyone that I've worked with at the department puts into achieving their mission. I mean, I will say a small department. I mean, there's 500 people roughly, but still, covering statewide so many different products and so many different functions. They do an amazing job with very limited resources. And so I've been really impressed, and I'm also really grateful to Lauren and Jonathan and the rest of the leadership team and Carla for helping me not fall on my face as an acting director. And it's been a very soft landing. It's only been for 3 months total, but it's been really great. And as Elin mentioned, I'm now a new booster for Oregon agriculture. So I really appreciate the effort and all the good work that you do. And this, preparing for this meeting has been really fascinating as well, because you always learn something when you're studying for the big event. So really appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to Lisa coming back and going back to my day job, but I'll have to say I will miss my time and the people at the Department of Agriculture. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. And, once an Aggie, always an Aggie. So welcome. And also thank, obviously the team here at the Department of Ag, we've gotten to learn what they're like and the leadership we have here. And it's a pretty special place. So thank you for your leadership and stepping in. And we too look forward to Lisa's return. So great. Next on the agenda is another person who obviously stood in and did multiple tasks through this interim, but Jonathan Sandow, I'll turn it over to you for the budget and legislative update. Thanks.
Good morning, Chair Miller, Acting Director Ryan, members of the board, Jonathan Sandow, Assistant Director here at the Department of Ag. Give you a quick update. We've talked quite a bit about budget, legislative pieces in the past. We are still kind of in an interim session, or kind of the interim spot. So not too much has changed. I will say for folks, we have successfully gone through budget audit, which means that the legislative adopted budget that we have is our actual budget. And that's what we'll be operating off of. Kind of those baselines again is we have about 401 FTE and about $172 million operating budget for the biennium, mixed between all kind of different the 4 fund types: federal funds, general funds, lottery dollars, and then other funds, which are our fee for services. So we are implementing that budget, moving forward with hiring positions that we have either gotten or or hiring due to retirements, but we're still hiring and kind of rolling out that budget pieces there. The upcoming short session will be starting in January of 24, which is about a 6-week session. And I think as a good reminder, we don't have big budget asks. Agencies, the executive branch doesn't put a lot of policy bills forward either. And so as we look forward towards the short session, both policy and budget wise, we have one budget request kind of right now into like the executive process to go forward, and that is around some funding into our animal rescue entity program, which was moved from basically the county level registering and licensing, inspecting animal shelters, rescue entities of animals, from the county level to the state level underneath our state vet back in 2019, and it is really a fee for service program. But the fees have not been kind of the fee base is not what was anticipated, and so we went in the short session in 22 and got general fund to kind of keep that program going. We're going back in 24 for a similar ask to kind of bring some more general fund into that program to keep it going to what it was. So that'll be that's primarily our budget ask for the 24 short session. In terms of policy bills that we are aware of that will be introduced and worked on in the session, I think some of the folks here will remember the canola conversations that came out of the last session. The department was tasked with putting together a report and some legislative recommendations about a long-term kind of solution for the canola production in the Willamette Valley Protection District. There will be a policy bill in the House Ag and Everything Else Committee, and that will be based off of kind of the recommendations in the report we presented to the legislature in September. And so that policy bill will be active during short session. There will be some other some other programs that we're a little bit aware of, some deer and elk compensation programs that the chairs and vice chairs of that committee have been working on, and then some other pieces that I don't think will directly impact the agency, but we'll certainly have an interest in. But that's kind of the universe that we're aware of going in a short session. And then in terms of implementation of previous policy bills, I would say Senate Bill 85, which was the CAFO bill, which is part of one of the more significant pieces of legislation that we'll be working on internally. We are doing early draft of rules and being able to start putting together a RAC, a Rules Advisory Committee, as we go into make the turn into 2024 to be able to implement that policy bill as we go through the different implementation dates, permit updating, those types of pieces. So that is the quick overshot for budget and legislative pieces as of right now. And any questions?
Any questions?
Yes, Barbara Boyer. So did we get a copy of that canola report? Did the board? Do we? I don't recall seeing one. I would love to see it,
We'll
please.
get you a copy.
Okay, thank you. The elk and deer compensation you were talking about, would that be damage to crops? Is that where ODA would kind of fall in on that?
Yeah, Chair Miller, Barbara Boyer. There are a few kind of working concepts in a task force that Representative Helm and Representative Bobby Levy are leading. But it really is focused on the compensation for damage to crops for the elk and deer populations. Scope of that, mechanics of that is still very much of an active conversation, but that's the focus point right now.
Yeah, we're dealing with that in Yamhill County. The elk are doing a lot of damage to crops. And then SB 85. So the RAC has not been put together yet. Is that what I understood from you?
Chair Miller, Barbara Boyer, we have RAC members. We've reached out to them. We started to kind of have those conversations. I think the best way to describe it is just kind of good two ways to run a RAC is either you bring RAC members in there and you say, hey, what should be in these rules? Let's talk about this. And then we go draft rules and we look at it. We know we have a really good sense on what's going to be in these rules. And so to be efficient with each other's times, to be more productive within the conversations, we're going to present a RAC with good draft rules to start that conversation from. And so that's where we're at in that process now. It's a coordinated effort between us and DEQ, so it's going to take a little bit longer to get those draft rules ready to go. But then once that process starts, then the RAC will be engaged to actually look at a substantive draft rule.
Okay, and the members have been chosen already? Do you know?
I believe that we've reached out to folks to ask if they're interested in serving.
Okay,
on
so
the RAC.
it's not been officially put together. Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
Chair Miller, Lauren Henderson, Deputy Director. I just wanted to add two things. One, it's time to actually have the department start thinking about our next budget. I know that's crazy, but it's time now. And our exec team met this week for 4.5 hours to lay the foundation for that conversation. And so you will be hearing, I think, more about that. I don't want to get ahead of Director Hansen, but I think we have some more work to do in our core infrastructure of our agency. I feel like after my years that every 20 years I have to regroup around the foundation of our department. I feel like our foundation's starting to crumble. And it's really hard to add new innovative programs that help agriculture on top of a foundation that maybe isn't as strong as it can be. That's my housing analogy. So we're going to be working on that and trying to really focus and be laser focused, I think, on our core work and what our agency needs to support that core work, and then probably build out from there. What that means for this board is I am willing, anxious for any board member that would like a one-on-one with me for how does this budget get built? I'm happy to do that. Sit down over a cup of coffee. I won't spend 4.5 hours like we did with our executive team, but I think it does help put a little context in you guys are at a little bit of an unfair position. We talk about all these numbers and things, and you really don't have, what is he talking about? So I'm not going to do it in a board meeting necessarily, but I'm happy to visit with any of you about that and maybe can put some documents together for that. But if you have any input about what you're hearing about our customer service or how our core services, please let us know what those things are so we can be thinking about what those are as we go forward.
Great. Any other questions or comments, Director Johnson or Dean Simonich? Since you're on the line. Okay. I'll add one thing to what Lauren has just asked or said. Is there an opportunity for us during a board meeting to really talk about, vulnerabilities? I almost look at when your infrastructure is challenged, there's vulnerabilities in just all your processes and getting things done, let alone some pretty critical areas and issues. Is there an opportunity? I'd like you guys to think about whether or not you want to come back to the board with saying, hey, here's a heads up to some things over time that we've, started to we've neglected a bit because we've had other priorities. There's reasons for all of this. So that might actually be other than just one-on-ones with board members.
Yeah, Chair Miller and board members, there absolutely is the opportunity to do that. We talk about that every day. I could do it right now and give you a 2-hour work session on that right today. But yeah, if that's something the board, I think we could have that conversation. And really, it's about past, present, and future. Our agency's always been adaptive, and it's time to be adaptive, I think, again, in order to make sense of where we need to go and make sure that we're meeting the needs of Oregon agriculture. So yeah, I think that would be a valuable conversation at some point.
Looking around the room, from a board standpoint, do you guys feel that would be a worthwhile? Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you for those comments. And now actually we're going to lead into the next agenda item, updating on grant programs and timelines. And I think that you're going to lead that, Lauren.
Yes, I need to make sure, Lauren Henderson, Deputy Director, make sure that my team members are with us. Carla,
Amy, Jess, and
Gabrielle. Gabrielle, are you on?
Gabrielle hasn't joined yet.
oh, there's Amy, so we can get started with that. We have a set of grant programs that we want to walk you through and get you up to speed on. I will just say before we get started with each one of them, it wasn't that long ago that our agency was a grant taker. In other words, we applied for the grants for some of our programs. We still do that today. However, our agency over the last few years has become more of an entity that actually offers grant opportunities for others. It's growing. It seems like every time we turn around, there's an opportunity for us to do that. That's certainly the case with these programs. The specialty crop program is probably our oldest and more mature program over the years that we've had over the years. But we thought it would be good for the board to hear about each of the programs and the opportunities. And then certainly the board is a critical piece as you're out in your communities to help folks find those opportunities and point them our way if you think that somebody could use the grant programs, because the dollars that we have don't do any good if anybody doesn't know about it. And we're working really hard to get the word out for those programs. I'm pretty excited about this. I will just tell you, we have talked about from our previous conversation, we're feeling a little bit like we missing some opportunities. I think there's more dollars for our state to get. We struggle with the capacity and we don't really have a formalized grants office. So you may hear us talk a little bit more about that. We do it individually and we do it very well with the staff we have. They do a great job. I'm super proud of each one of these programs. And of course, the last one is the meat capacity grants. You've heard me talk about that over and over again, so you'll hear more about that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy. Are you ready?
Yep, I am. I don't see any slides though, so maybe that's.
Oh, we'll get those up.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
And the volume seems a little low,
It does, yeah.
please. Thank you.
Amy, can you see those now?
I do, thanks.
All right, I'm gonna turn it over to
All
you.
right.
Introduce yourself and get going.
Okay. Well, good morning, Chair Miller, Acting Director Ryan, and members of the board. I'm Amy Gilroy, Farm to School Manager at the Oregon Department of Agriculture. Before we start talking about some of our newer grant programs, I did want to share with the board a new initiative that's underway, actually nationally, but also here in Oregon. And this is this is actually from Undersecretary Vilsack's Food System Transformation Framework. These are the new USDA regional food business centers. And so this is a new 5-year initiative that recently launched nationwide. And these are these centers are being announced by USDA via cooperative agreement with different regions. So you'll see here there's 12 centers across the country, and the mission of the centers, you can see that there on the left-hand side, is to provide a suite of resources to help emerging small farms and businesses enter into local and regional markets. And they're really hoping that this can help build a more resilient supply chain that can hopefully or ideally withstand some of the unforeseeable disruptions like we faced during the pandemic in the supply chain. We are going to be Oregon will be part of this Northwest and Rocky Mountain Center, which you'll see there in the upper left-hand corner of the map in the dark green. And so we'll be joining those other 5 states in the region. And essentially the centers will have, these are not physical centers. These are more virtual or coordination centers. Oregon State University and ODA will be the leads for the center in Oregon. And they will basically have 3 main responsibilities. The first one is around coordination. So USDA is really hoping that by investing in these centers that we can improve the coordination of local, state, and federal resources in a way that builds, I think, more transparency and trust in how funding programs work among those emerging farms and food businesses who maybe haven't had a chance to use them. They're also expecting us to design and deliver appropriate technical assistance to producers, and also leverage what technical assistance already exists in the states and regions. And obviously at ODA we have a lot of that. And then also capacity building. They will be offering small grants through what they're calling a Business Builder Grant Program. And the idea behind these funds is to help small and emerging businesses and farms with business planning, financial coaching, product development for value-added goods, and also some small funds for equipment purchases. Next slide. So this is so each region will actually have its own web presence. So this is actually something USDA, Colorado State University, and as I mentioned, Oregon State University are the co-leads for our region. So this is our new website that was just launched. And you can see the website link up there on the left-hand corner if you want to jot that down or come back to it. But essentially, this is where the 6 states in our region will post upcoming trainings and initiatives and events that will be held throughout the duration of the grant program, and just other announcements that will be relevant for farms and food businesses in the region. So this will be an important place. Farms and businesses can also find us on this site, so they can submit a request for some of our technical assistance, or can submit requests for more information about any of the programs that we might have running in the region. So we're hoping this becomes a more interactive place for folks. So I also should mention and wanted to share that the center our center will have $30 million over the 5-year period. So roughly each of the states will receive about $1 million each year to support some of those responsibilities that I mentioned on the previous page. The majority of the funds will be dispersed through technical assistance and those business builder grants that I mentioned. And again, I think they're really hoping that we can leverage other existing programs and initiatives with these dollars. So I think ODA is really well poised for that with some of the new grants that we have coming out. Next slide. So this is the structure of what USDA is expecting the centers to look like. And so just, I didn't mention, but these are the 6 states that are part of our region down there in the right-hand corner. So Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Washington. So we've already had one of our first center meetings last month in Colorado, and that was really the first time for the 6 states that are part of the center to really get together. Most of the departments of agriculture are leads with university extensions and other partners representing the states. And then you'll see there also that we're going to be working on different theme areas under the center. So I won't go into a lot of detail about those today, mostly because we're still determining what those initiatives will look like. But one of the areas that has changed a little bit is that first one around building the meat supply capacity in the region. We've actually expanded that to include the animal protein supply chain and not only meat products, but there was a lot of input from Oregon and Washington partners because of our coastal communities and our fisheries that we wanted to be supportive of any of the needs that they might have. But you'll see that those are the theme areas. We're also going to be working on creating more diverse markets for producers that are using climate resilient agriculture practices, connecting and scaling food entrepreneurs. Obviously, we have a very budding food entrepreneur community and ethos on the West Coast. So we want to help some of those new businesses connect to markets. And then right-sizing the investing in infrastructure dollars. You know, a lot of small businesses can't metabolize large amounts of money very quickly. So we really want to take a look at and support farms and food businesses in terms of what grant programs or what financing might be right for them. So the theme teams will have leads, and we have a lot of different partners, a network of partners that are actually those theme team leads. Some of those are OSU employees and staff and others across the region. And then I also wanted to mention that we'll be working with a number of stakeholders that represent these groups down in the left-hand corner here. We'll be working with, especially in Oregon, we'll be working with a lot of organizations representing producers of color and indigenous producers. We expect to be coordinating with some of the tribes, veteran farmers, farmers that are accessing the AgriAbility program, and then new entry and urban farmers, working with some of our beginning farmer programming in the state. So those are a lot of the advisors that we're going to be working with to sort of drive the direction of the center over these next few years. So I don't know if I have another slide, but I did want to mention that at the same time that the USDA announced the 12 centers, they announced almost in the same breath another block of funding specifically to help the middle of the supply chain. And this is a new resilient food system infrastructure grant that's designed to help those businesses there. So I'm going to turn it over to Gabrielle so she can talk more about this program.
Thanks so much, Amy. Yeah, so as Amy mentioned, USDA has released a set of dollars that they're calling the Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Grant. This is essentially to build resilience in the middle of the supply chain to strengthen local and regional food systems. Really what they're looking at is funding projects that are benefiting small, medium-sized processors and producers to really enhance and grow and strengthen our food system. A lot of the idea behind this is when COVID hit and a lot of our transportation and other areas within our supply chain had to be shut down or had to engage some personal protection equipment and distancing, really showed the USDA that there are some holes within our food system. So Oregon is really excited to be one of the first states that got our whole project accepted, and we are going to run this pretty similarly to some other federal funding that we have. But the exciting part about this grant is there's 2 really unique tracks within this system. So we've got the simplified equipment grant only, which is anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000. And it's just what it says. It's only purchasing equipment for the middle of the supply chain processors. This piece of equipment could be anything from, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on equipment that we could purchase, but it's just equipment only. It is no infrastructure side of things. The other side of the project is infrastructure proposals, and those projects are anywhere from $100,000 to $2 million. We are going to do it as a disbursement-based program, and there is some matching funds that are required for this program. So as we work through the new dollars and understanding how it's going to affect our agricultural community within Oregon, we're really looking for projects that affect more than one producer, and really kind of look at the projects that work with historically underserved groups and communities, as well as maybe products that we don't necessarily see all of the time. Pretty much every crop is allowable within this program except meat, seafood, dairy, a few other ones in there as well. We're going to go out for requests for applications for the infrastructure projects January 1 of this next year, and we're going to close the end of February. We hope to give people about 2 months to sit with the applications, to look at them, to understand what they need to supply to us. We are also going to go out for the simplified equipment grants February 1 and close the end of February. So we're looking at only about a month for those, because those applications are much shorter, much easier, not as big and as potentially scary as an equipment or as an infrastructure project might be for a group. There's more information on our website. I apologize. There is more information on our website. As you can see here on the bottom, there's a direct link to our RFSI page. USDA is still in the process of essentially planning this grant, even though we already have awards out to the states. So what we're going to be doing is really trying to keep that webpage up to date, and the most correct information that we have at the time. We're really hoping that not much changes between now and when we open, but there are still a few things that USDA is figuring out that we will have to then turn around and implement within our program. A portion of this grant as well is going to be a state-led project. It's about $1 million for our state to do something that we see as beneficial to the middle of the supply chain. We are still building out that information, that whole system. So if you have an idea, please feel free to email the Resilient Food Systems email as you see at the bottom of this page. I'm sure Carla can send this whole slide deck out so you guys have everything. But as I said, we're still trying to build that program out. So if you have ideas, feel free to email us. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
The other program I'm going to talk about today is the USDA
Gabrielle.
special. Oh, yes.
Gabrielle. Yeah, let's pause for just a second.
Sure.
Let's see if there's any questions about these two programs. And before we do that, can you remind me, Gabrielle, how much we have to allocate for the RFSI? Because I can't remember. It's five. What is it? Total?
In total, it's about 5 million. I think it's 5.9 million. So we've got $1 million internal. We've got some dollars to supply some personnel for this program. And then we've split the rest. I believe it was 60-40, with the infrastructure grants receiving 60% of the rest and the equipment grants receiving the remaining 40. Off of the top of my head, I think it's something like 2.1 million for infrastructure, I believe. So that's why if you look at it, the RFSI for other states, you might see a higher total. allowable for infrastructure grants because of how they broke out their equipment versus infrastructure dollars. So we
Right.
sent out a survey earlier this year to our middle of the supply chain folks, and they responded with wanting a higher percentage of equipment grants. So that's kind of our funding. I'm sorry, I don't have the correct numbers off the top of my head. I haven't been in that application in a couple of days.
Yeah, no, so it's okay. So there's approximately $5 million out there in individual categories. As we get
Yep.
further along in the process, we will bring that back to the board on the categories and what they are, so you have them more. But questions?
Yes, Director Boyer.
First of all, when I saw both your names on the agenda, I was looking forward to seeing you both. So I'm kind of bummed I'm not seeing you today in person. Let's see, Amy, you first. Let's see. So, and then hearing Gabrielle's presentation, seems there's a lot of different funding pools for equipment. Am I getting that? I'm hearing yours and then hearing Gabrielle and then knowing there's another grant opportunity for equipment. Is that 3 different grant opportunities for equipment in this program? Is that kind of what I'm gathering?
Chair Miller, Member Boyer, with the Regional Food Business Center dollars, those are going to be very small grants, probably anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000. And my impression from talking to USDA is that they are, and our state team, OSU and others, is that they're expecting some of those dollars to be used for very small equipment purchases for post-harvest processing, but the majority of those business builder grants are really meant to help prepare the business to be able to be competitive in applying for other grant programs. So a lot of the business builder funding will help support some of the other aspects of the business. So whether that's business planning or helping them with access to different financial tools, whatever they might need. I think it's really about the soft infrastructure that they need for their business to grow. But there will be some of those funds. And again, we're still determining. In fact, OSU is leading the Business Builder grant program. Lauren Gwynn over there is leading that Business Builder grant program for the whole region. So they're still designing that, but those are some of the parameters that that USDA has set forth for us. So the majority of it will not be for equipment. And then one more comment is I will see you today because I'll be at the lunch at Eugene School District. So
thank you. Good.
I would say these two are not in competition to each other. They are meant to be complementary and using the base in one for the other. That's how USDA tried to put it out there in a very quick time frame. And we're meeting weekly as a team to try to make sure that we build both of them and are participate in both places. The goal being obviously that the money gets out and that people have an opportunity to put it to use today. So that's the goal. And we don't have all the answers because we're really working really hard to put it in place.
I think that's a good distinction that Lauren just made about, the Regional Food Business Center dollars are really designed to support the individual business, and these RFSI dollars are really designed to help support the middle of the supply chain in accessing these businesses that are taking advantage of the center's offering. So that's a really good comment, Lauren.
Director Boyer, you had another question.
Thank you. So Amy, for you, I heard you say 30 million was coming to our region. Is that correct? Or is that just to the state?
That 30 million for those 6 spread across those 6 states.
Okay. And then you had mentioned a $1 million a year. I was confused as to what that would be.
Well, I think that's, I don't know exactly how that's going to pencil out. I'm still waiting for some calculations and figures, or everyone's still waiting for those calculations from Colorado State University, who's the lead on our region. But essentially what they've told us is that around $1 million will be available to each state per year in the form of staffing support. So Oregon does have each state will have a coordinator for the regional food business centers. So Oregon has hired a coordinator. And so that $1 million will be used to help support staff and then also design some of those programs or technical assistance offerings, events, conferences, trainings, whatever it might be. And then I believe that also includes the allocation for the Business Builder grant program per year.
Thank you. I still have, sorry. Gabrielle, this is for you. I just have one question. You had talked about the match for both of these, the simplified equipment and the infrastructure. What is the ratio for match? Do you know yet?
Yes, so the ratio is going to actually depend on the size of the business and whether the business meets certain qualifications. So there is, I think it's 50% match for most grants, and then it's a 25% match for small producers. And they use the business administration framework for small and medium-sized producers, as well as historically underserved communities also get 25% match. I believe there is no match for the equipment, if I'm remembering that correctly. But I can get you the correct language from USDA that gives you the whole breakdown of who does what.
All right, thank you. And then I just have one comment. So when you were talking about how you're going to split up the 5 million, and it sounded like roughly there would be 2.1 million available for infrastructure, that seems like only one person could qualify for all of that funding if the maximum of infrastructure projects are 2 million. So the potential of only one person getting funded is there when you just have that much money. So thank you.
All right, Director Lopez.
Yes, thank you, Director Miller. Question for Gabrielle. So I think Barbara kind of touched on this a little bit, but mine goes a little bit deeper into the cycle. So let's say somebody applies for this January 1st, 2024. It's equipment that they'll need in the springtime. How quickly are these applications being processed and money dispersed to those individuals that are applying for this?
That is a fantastic question. So at this time, we are hoping to get those funds out very quickly. The timeline we have built in is about a month for reviewing the applications that come in with our advisory panel that we have established. From there, we are going to take about another month to review them internally, approve what applications are going forward, and then we will work on getting a clarification to the USDA. So we have to apply to USDA by May 24, 2024 for them to review the applications, approve the work that's going to be done, and then we can move forward. Most of the time, in my experience, USDA likes to take their time in reviewing those applications, but they have assured us as states that they will get back with clarifications within 90 days of submitting that application. So we will hopefully have word back June, July. We might have to go through one round of clarification with USDA, and from there we should be able to start the agreement process. Most of the time, agreement process takes 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the subgrantees reviewing the agreement that we put forward. So I'm hoping to have the funds out by October latest. That is the schedule. We essentially built this schedule off of other federal grants that we have within the department, and using that framework, I would say October is probably a healthy estimation.
Any further question?
Just one more comment real quick before we move on. There is a one pager in your packet on this program that we have, I believe, on our website. If you want to take a look at that, that has a little bit of examples and some other things that might help you. And then just to follow up with that, like all of our grant programs, I mean, our intent Miguel, the process is never fast enough. I'll just tell you that. However, we want to be as thoughtful as we can to make sure that the proposals get their due review and that we understand what people have given to us in the time frame that we have. I've had conversations with USDA, with Jonathan at the various NASDA. Their intent is to get this moving. It's important to get the money out on the ground. So I think we're moving probably as fast as we can in the nation for this, which actually is pretty amazing given how fast it got rolled out and that. So I'm pretty proud of USDA and their flexibility and what they're doing to keep the states moving on this. I still have one more hurdle. I have to get budget approval in February, but I don't anticipate that being an issue. Okay, let's move on if that's okay.
Great. If we can go ahead and move on to USDA specialty crop block grant.
Absolutely. I did look up some numbers really quickly for RFSI because 2.1 didn't sound right. Infrastructure grants are 2.8 and equipment grants are 1.2. I apologize for the inaccurate numbers earlier. As for the specialty crop block grant program, this is what I do. This is my bread and butter. This is, I am the coordinator for this program. So essentially what the specialty crop block grant program, or what I affectionately call specialty crop because that title is very long, it is used to enhance the competitiveness of specialty crops within the state of Oregon. This could be marketing, promotion, research, really the gamut on any of those crops. Specialty crops are fruits, vegetables, tree nuts, dried fruits, nursery crops, horticulture, etc. Essentially anything that is not livestock is a specialty crop. So here in Oregon, pretty much everything we produce, which is excellent. We get approximately $2 million every year. We are in a farm bill year, so we might see a fluctuation in that as USDA updates their algorithms. We got 1.9 million this year. We awarded several projects that we're really excited about that got started October 1. We will be opening for 2024 in December. December 1st is when I will send out a request for applications. We will close January 31st. Grant terms are 2.5 years, so 2.5 years. And awards range from $25,000 to $175,000. And again, these are grants that we're looking at enhancing an entire industry. These are not for one individual, one company, one organization. It really is for the betterment of the entire group. So thinking about, let's say, sending blueberries to Korea. We work with a lot of the commodity commissions. We have several grants with OSU doing some really interesting stuff as well. All of that to be said, again, the website is listed here and my email is listed here. We're excited about opening the grant again for 2024 here soon and seeing what applications we get. The other grant program that we didn't put in here, but I do want to highlight really quickly is the organic cost share reimbursement application. We didn't put it in because it's not really a grant to farmers in the way that most of these other grant programs are a grant. It is a reimbursement based application for those who have received their organic certification and need a reimbursement based on the amount that they spent on their organic certification that year. It's $750 or 75% based on how much they paid. So those are the 3 grant programs that I'm involved in. I wonder if there are any questions about specialty crop or organic cost share. I know I ran through this pretty quickly. I want to be conscious of our time.
Any questions?
I have a quick one, and that is Bill Ryan here, Acting Director. Gabriel, it says here on the slide, 1.9 million was awarded for the 2023 fiscal year. So do we know what the award will be for 24?
No.
We're using the 1.9 for this coming cycle?
So 1.9 was awarded in 2023. So USDA releases their request for proposal about that March-ish, February-ish. But because our process takes so much longer, we have to go out for request for proposal in December. So we won't know how much money we'll get until that gets released. Most of the time, the 1.9 is pretty average, what we've received about the last 5 years. But that was what was awarded to our grantees this year for the 2023 year. So their projects, as I mentioned, started October 1 of 23. The 2024 projects will start October 1 of 24.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? Thank you, Gabriel. We'll move on then to the Farm to School producer grant. Next.
All right, I will be presenting on this grant program. So as many of you are aware, we have a very popular farm to school program in the state, funded at about $10.8 million for the 2023-2025 biennium. More than 60% of those funds are to support schools and other eligible food sponsors in purchasing Oregon products. Anything grown, raised, harvested, caught, or processed in Oregon does qualify for that reimbursement. We have over 200 food sponsors or schools that are participating in the Farm to School program, and we have over 500 different types of agriculture businesses that have made sales to schools in the last 10 years under that program. So very popular program. I'm excited to go to the Eugene High School today with you all, and we're going to have a local lunch there and talk more about it. But this is one of the more newer grant programs within the framework for the Farm to School program in Oregon. And in this biennium, we did have a POPS to actually transfer this portion of the Farm to School fund over to ODA. This had previously been managed by the Department of Education, but to help streamline the program and just reduce some of those administrative hurdles, we thought it would be best if it sat here, and ODE agreed as well. So we did also receive double the funding that we've had from last bienniums. So the grant will be funded at $500,000 for this coming biennium. And really the intention of these dollars are to help producers and processors and fishers and ranchers with any equipment or financial needs for infrastructure like cold storage, things like that they might need to help get their products into a form that's more convenient for schools and food sponsors to use. And so we've seen tremendous success with the program. It's a relatively young grant program at ODA. It is also disbursement based, as these other programs are becoming. And again, this is something that a lot of organizations have been advocating for, is to provide these funds up front. Especially to support some of our low and no capital farms and businesses that might just be getting started. It does have a matching requirement. So if you have been selling to schools for some time, there is a 20% match requirement in in-kind or cash donations. And if you're new to selling to schools, there's a 10% cash requirement or in-kind requirement. So this is one of our existing grantees, or 2023 grantees, just winding down actually, Deck Family Farm down in Junction City, and they've been growing or they've been raising poultry and parting that poultry for schools. And so they did buy a meat grinder and a broiler to get those parts in the right form for schools. And they also were able to get up to their licensed, the 20,000 bird state exemption under the license there for this project. So they're one of our outgoing grantees. And we hope to open the grant cycle soon. We've got a few changes that we're making. We are making it more explicit that tribal producers are eligible for these funds and can use these dollars to support tribal producers that are providing meals on reservations or in tribal communities, and a couple of other small tweaks. But essentially, that's what's going on with this program.
Okay, any questions of Amy? Director Boyer.
So Amy, the tribal piece was fascinating. You said just in the community, not necessarily schools?
That's correct. We are looking at allowing tribal producers to sell their products to native meal programs on the reservation. Some of the most of the reservations are in vended meal agreements with adjacent districts. So most of the meals are being provided by the offerings of that neighboring school district. But oftentimes they do have meals that celebrate different cultural aspects of the tribe or the native group. And so we are allowing producers to be reimbursed or we are allowing the tribe to be reimbursed for those purchases. And most of those are in youth settings or education settings. A lot of them are actually already part of the CACFP program, the child food program. There's many Head Starts on reservations, and those are eligible entities for the benefit from ODE. But we're also looking at some other kind of adjacent allowances there.
Any further questions? Even though we've run out of time, I think we can definitely still spend some time. We've heard a lot about the meat grants, but let's go ahead and move on to that. Is that Jess, you're going to do that, or who is doing that?
Certainly talk about that. Good morning, everyone. For the record, Jess Paulson, Director of Market Access and Certification Programs. In our meeting, I believe it was in Roseburg, we described what the first round of the meat grant had looked like. The legislature awarded quite a bit more money in the next biennium, which is allowing us to offer $8.2 million in grants for 23-25. I'm hoping to get that application process kicked off today. We will be publishing the documents in English and in Spanish that includes the application guidelines and the scoring sheet that indicates for applicants what we are using for determination of kind of what applications should be higher or lower scored or meeting our criteria. The original grant that I described when we were in Roseburg was only $2 million, and we really put that money towards expanding slaughter facilities and services in a diversity range across the state. We'll continue to look at those needs because that's the beginning of the supply chain for animal processing. But with the additional money, we're really hoping to find some more places to make sure that as we go from slaughter to kind of the processing, the cut and the wrap, to get it into a form that is more consumer ready, and then into maybe some of the value add, that we're not increasing the number in one just to face another bottleneck as we go down that line. We have a deadline for the application of the 16th of January. Hopefully that's going to be giving people, there's never a good time of year for this to happen. We're trying to allow a good amount of time for people to put together a strong application, but also not to delay the process for making those awards, maximize the amount of time throughout the rest of the biennium to do a disbursement. We've revised the rule to increase the amount of award to $750,000, reflecting the larger amount that we have available. And we've reserved the determination by the directors just how much we will do as an initial disbursement. We had done 75% in a previous round. We'll do up to 75%, but recognizing that we're going to be putting a lot of that money out at once, maybe not doing a full 75% if it's a $500,000 or $750,000 award.
Thank you,
Deputy
Jeff.
Director.
We'll wrap up real quickly. I'll just say I'm really excited about all of these programs. Really excited to bring back to the board at some point in time our success stories, and maybe even bring some folks that actually were benefactors of those dollars and what they've done. I can tell you, I went and had lunch at the meeting place and the meet and greet with Casey. Enjoyed my lunch. It was really, I was just there to thank him for being the first and a pioneer for getting this program back on and started. But I have to say, I went into, well, they serve wonderful sandwiches there if you're ever there. But I went into his processing area just real briefly and looked at the amount of customers in there that were buying products from the meat case. I think he told me he was putting 5 to 7 animals a week in there that were local. And I was there on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and it looked a third gone. And he said, Lauren, by Friday, this will all be gone. So there's a need there. People want it and are willing to pay for that. And so I'm pretty excited about that and hope we can continue to build on this program. Thank you.
Great. Director Johnson, I think you had your hand up. So did you have a question? Shantae, we can't hear you.
Hi, everybody. Shantae Johnson here. I am really excited about this meat program, and I was curious about if it's going to be offered to local fishermen as well. Is that included for, facilities that meat that fish is processed at? Thinking about our indigenous fishermen. And then I guess my other question was about mobile butchers, since it's not like a set location. I know that folks are having a really hard time getting their, meat processed, it's getting backlogged and people have to reserve, with their butchers at least a year in advance. And so I was just curious about that, if it's going to apply for mobile butchers and also fish.
Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, so Rick Jess Paulson for the record, and Director Chair Miller and Director Johnson. The mobile is eligible, and to a degree, the project that Director Henderson was just mentioning is part of a mobile program. He has a mobile vehicle that was part of his grant, and he's taking that to 2 different locations so that he's able to service a wider area within the area that he covers. I know that in future plans, he's looking at expanding that to another part of the state. So yes, we're definitely looking at the utility of mobile to better reach those areas that need service. The grant unfortunately doesn't cover seafood. It's pretty specific to terrestrial protein. We do have some other programs that we're working on with seafood promotion, and that's really not working on the availability of resources for the fishermen or for the processors, but trying to reach more customers, whether within Oregon or we actually have one of our trade managers, Eric Garman, is in the Netherlands and the UK this week, continuing a promotion that we started last year, trying to build up utilization of Oregon seafood products in Europe.
Director Johnson, did that answer your question? Are you good?
I am. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Jess. Any other questions of board members? Again, thank you all for joining us even virtually, and we'll get to see some of you very soon. So that's great. We are running a little late, but I think we're fine. The next agenda item is review applications for the farmer rancher position of the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Commission. We aren't going to make a decision today. We're going to make a decision tomorrow. We have time set for that. But I'd like to just open it if there's any question. We did receive one application for the position. Chad Allen, who serves on this board, is basically his term is ending January 2024. And so we need to be able to select a person to serve on this commission. So I don't know if there's anything Deputy Director Henderson, you want to add here, or Director Boyer that you may want to add?
Yes. I know Jim Bob Collins. He'd be a really great member to the commission, OAHC. I sit on the Saltwater Conservation Commission with him. He's a very engaged commission member and manages quite a large piece of property out of Wheeler County. So no, I would definitely, I know we only have one, but I for sure support this application.
Great. That's good to know when there's only one application. We hope in the future, not to take away from this applicant, but we hope in the future that there would be more applicants for this position. And we might want to also think about what we can do to encourage that as well. So we are actually now ahead of time by 5 minutes, and I gotta love that. Don't get any ideas, especially one board member that's sitting to my left. But anyway, we'll go ahead and take a break. We are going to come back at 10 a.m. for public comment, and I do believe that there are a couple individuals that did sign up for public comment. Again, those public comments are restricted to focus on 3 minutes apiece, and we'll just come back at 10 o'clock.
you can, because it branches out, just like a regular filter would do. And so you
That's better. You guys are back.
you end up cutting it down all this stuff, and you get these giant brush piles. We have more giant burn piles every year. Every year we've gotten,
So how
at
big
least
of a
20.
place?
We have 300 acres.
Oh, is that on all 300? Oh,
It's on most of them.
I'm sorry.
It's, yeah, me too. Yeah, it's probably a, 200.
I bet it's beautiful though. I bet.
buddy bought it. They'd go up in there and they would hunt pheasants because there was hardly any trees up there, and the grass
We can hear you again.
could just be. Sometimes it's this deep, sometimes it's.
What would you like to hear?
Are we there?
Oh, there's an echo there.
Just get rid of it.
Well, we want to plant other trees, and then it really just turned it into a horse property because there's a lot of horse people around.
There absolutely is.
And we have a really nice barn stable area, and
Is there a way we could do it the old-fashioned way with just audio and not worry about visual right now? Or is it still not? We have audio? Shantae, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think we'll proceed with just audio. And so we can keep things going because we do have a pretty hard stop to be able to get to the school and lunch and the kids and all that kind of stuff. So I'll go ahead and open it for public comment. And again, you have 6 minutes between the two of you and again, the Hamiltons. And I'll let you do some self-introductions and what the focus is. So thank you.
all right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for allowing us the time to speak here today. We really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Terry Hamilton. This is my wife, Shannon Hamilton. We've been in the area. Well, we both grew up in the Eugene Springfield area. 30 years ago, we moved out to the Harrisburg area. And 2 years ago, we bought a 300-acre property in the Coburg Hills, just so we have a little more privacy and a little more away from other people. The view is excellent. It's a great place to be at, and we really like our environment and the people around us. It's very, very nice. But what we would like to talk to you guys about today is the solar projects that they're planning in the Willamette Valley. And one main one is the Muddy Creek solar project that's on EFU land that's class 1 soil. It's the best soil in the valley, some of the best soil you can get anywhere. And they're planning on putting in a 1,500 acre, I think it's 1,588 acres of these solar panels in prime ag land. And they're billing it as a dual purpose where they're going to allow sheep to be grazed underneath these projects or these panels, which require a lot more supports and a higher base. And it's an unproven project. They're just now starting to do it. And sometimes it looks really promising. Other times it's not so promising and it fails. And so after the sheep get pulled off, which is approximately about a 2-month stay on underneath this ground or on the pretty much any ground, sheep are pretty much on for 2 months and then they're moved to another location. Well, since there's no sheep there, the invasive species of weeds will grow, which means they have to apply a tremendous amount of herbicides to kill off all the weeds and keep it knocked down so the farmers around don't have to keep spraying extra sprays on their property because, as you know, a dandelion will throw out a whole bunch more everywhere else on your property, on your neighbor's property. So the weeds will become quite a problem also. We fight weeds quite a bit, and we're in a direct line of this property. We sit at 800 feet above the valley floor, and we will see 90% of this solar farm, the solar project. And so for us, we have a lot of emotions on the visual aspect of it, but that's just us. There's quite a few people that have a visual of this, but it won't be as invasive as ours. And we didn't buy this property to look at solar panels. We bought the property to see the wildlife, see the landscape, to watch the crops grow, to watch them get harvested and go through the whole cycle of what ag land is. And that's why we moved up there. But that's kind of just us. We represent about 1,000, 2,000 people that are highly against this project because of the main thing is taking away the class 1 soil and taking it out of production for what they claim is 20 to 40 years. Well, after that 20 to 40 year period, you're going to have all these structures that are going to be in place that the stands, just to get the panels up high enough, are going to be buried. The concrete stands are going to be 6 to 10 feet down. The amount of cost to remove everything off of this is going to be exorbitant, especially in 20 to 40 years. So if you've ever been around solar farms, there are solar projects that are outdated and no longer commissioned. They don't remove them. They stay there because there's no place to recycle these materials. And they're pushing this as a big bond that all this money will be set aside to remove all this stuff. That's pie in the sky. All these projects had a way at one time feasible to start out that they would be removed, and they're not. You can go to multiple places that these old solar farms are gone, and the panels are still there. They're falling apart. They're not being pulled out and stuck in landfill because you can't put them in landfill because there's too much hazardous waste in them. So one of the things that we've found, so are solar panels more toxic than nuclear waste? And this is published. It's been on Google. I don't know about news feeds, but in Google you can find this. The act of producing 1 ton of polysilicone, I'll get to it, leads to 3 or 4 tons of silicone tetrachloride waste. Solar produces 300 times more toxic waste per unit of energy than does nuclear waste. And so we're going to have all this highly toxic material that's going to go on to ag land that really can't be reused. You can't put animals back on it because they have a possibility of ingesting through the grass.
And there's no proof that they're going to be able to keep sheep on there, no requirement, because when I went to the meeting in Brownsville, that QCell, the applicant, said that they're going to be given variances throughout the project, even after it's approved. So there's no guarantee. They can't even tell us what solar panels they're going to use. I'd like to, in my closing, read what I found, the vision statement that is on the Department of Agriculture, their website page. And it says, our vision, the Oregon Department of Agriculture remains able to serve the changing needs of Oregon's diverse agricultural and food sectors to maintain and enhance a healthy natural resource base and strong economy in rural and urban communities across the state. I respectfully request that you uphold your vision statement and oppose this solar experiment.
We're really here to ask you guys for help, because we're just a bunch of dirt farmers or ground tillers or apple pluckers. We don't have a lot of voice until there's a whole bunch of us together, but we need people that have actually the ability to stand up and say, we need to keep this EFU class 1 soil as farm ground. My ground is really the type of ground that this project would need to go on. My ground is darn near worthless. If it wasn't for the elk and the deer and the view, you can't grow fir trees, you can't grow a crop. You can grow pucker pears. If you all know what a pucker pear is, it's the worst pear you ever want to try to bite, because you'll know exactly why they call it a pucker pear.
Yeah.
The only time that's ever,
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're out of time.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry.
That's okay. That's
Blinking red
okay.
light.
Well, we appreciate the fact that you brought this to our attention, and we do have a business discussion tomorrow where we can certainly have further discussion. But as you know, jurisdiction of some of these is in a different spot. But I think this will be a good learning for our board of how that what that might look like and how that might work. So do appreciate, we do need to stick with our
Okay.
limits of time.
I'm sorry. I spoke
Okay,
too long.
no,
It didn't give you much chance.
yeah, well, but you did have the last word,
Okay.
kind of.
Can I ask one question before we go? So is this jurisdiction not your jurisdiction to intervene or help out with?
I think we need to have a chance to talk about it, but it's local land use, it's other land use. We definitely do provide comments on these things from a Department of Ag standpoint, but it's also great that you've brought this to our attention because the solar issue has been definitely something that has been out there and not fully resolved. So, yeah. So our resolution, do we?
And
Okay,
we
we
do
have.
and we do represent the Friends of Gap Road.
Okay, the Friends of Gap Road too.
Yeah,
Okay.
They're,
Do you know what resolution?
oh.
Okay, well, yeah, actually, that would be great if you could have a chance to chat with the person who would be involved heavily.
All right, thank you for your time.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. And thanks for letting me ask the extra questions and taking a little extra time.
Hey, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. And tomorrow there will be a different rep from us because we're heading out of town. So
Okay.
there'll be another gentleman. He's just as versed as we are.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Great.
Oh, nice meeting you.
Okay, we are 7 minutes over time and we are going to move into discussion board member perspectives. This is something new that actually was Deputy Director Henderson's brainchild to bring, that provides us some time as a board to discuss priority issues we think are important, our perspectives on things. We a lot of times don't have a chance to actually chat because we have to only chat if we're chatting collectively is here. So I'll let Deputy Director Henderson kind of kick off what his thoughts are, and then I have some few thoughts to begin, and we may want to continue this at future board meetings too as we go forward. So
Thank you, and I'll be very quick. I think the purpose of this is that the board, you spend a lot of time as a sponge absorbing information, but we don't really allow you a lot of time together to talk to each other about your communities or things that are of the top of your mind affecting agriculture. And I think this was just a little bit of a short time to maybe have you bring those things up. I think it doesn't have to be all negative. There's a lot of wonderful things going on in your communities or your sectors. I will just give you an example to get you started. One of the things that I've had on my mind, particularly over the last few years, but particularly when I was the acting director and out with people and getting to meet wonderful people like Terry and Shannon, who I just met for the first time, is my concern about our family farms and the 37,000 some that we have all across our state. I've had the good fortune to meet a lot of people over the last year and have breakfast and coffee and go to dinners and things. And at the FFA convention, and every speech I've given, every talk I've given, I've talked about that we have our 37,000 farms and 97% are family owned. And my worry is, will I have 37,000 some next year and the year after? That includes succession planning. It includes bringing along first generation. It brings along younger people. I mean, the list goes on, but that has been at the top of my mind for the last year. I don't see that going away. I really believe that our farms and ranches are the backbone of Oregon agriculture. We represent a lot more than that, our processors and the downstream and all of the things that go with that, but that's certainly the top of my mind. So that's one thing I'll just throw out for all of you there.
great, thank you. And what I thought we could do, I think in the email that went out to the board, we talked about a few minutes apiece. We don't want to make this too terribly formal, but at the same time, if there's some agreement in some topics that are brought up, it might actually be great for you to say, either raise your hand or say, yep, that would have been on my, on my radar from a priority. Because my thought of how we could utilize this is actually to kind of help shape some of our agendas too. And as well as potentially looking at different resolutions or whatever that we may need to address if we don't have it in place. So that was a kind of a thought I had that we could take away from this. And I'll go ahead and just throw out one. I had a few, but I'll throw out one that I do think is pretty top of mind at this stage from my standpoint is, and I'm going to call it talent, and talent/labor. And I continue to be exceedingly worried, even though it's ratcheting down with the ag overtime situation. And just looking at what's happening in California and Washington there, and just how we're going to deal with what I'm calling I think a lot of people well-intentioned, but I call it an experiment that may fail for not only the workers, but the farmers as well. So that to me is something that I think in the short term, agriculture is dealing with and having to move forward and attempt to implement. And I'm just worried that we're going to be able to be competitive from an Oregon standpoint as we go forward on that. So that was one that was top of mind for me. I'll stop there and I'll just open it up to the group. And I don't know, I see some shaking of heads on that one. So anyway, there may be some other people that are in agreement or in disagreement. So
I'm in agreement. I don't have workers, but I'm in agreement. And one of the things I've been thinking about with this ag overtime, we have not been hearing from the workers. I really want to hear from the laborers on this topic after having 1 year under their belt. We are not hearing from them. And that's really important to me. So that's on that topic.
I don't have a lot to add. It is a huge concern. When I tell people I'm coming to these meetings, they're like, are you guys going to talk about it? And I look at the resolutions that we're looking at, and they sort of involve labor, but we're not touching on the elephant in the room, or the elephant out in the field. You're right. We aren't hearing from the labor. From the workers. I do, and they're extremely concerned. And they asked me what I'm going to do, as this sort of clamps down, or what I did. Who they want to know who asked for it. Who wanted this, and it's like I don't have a good answer for them, which is probably kind of unnerving for them. I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna do. This sort of thing reminds me of the driver's license issue on a whole different level. They were asking about that. Who wanted to take this away? What happened? And I have my own perspective, but I don't have a real good idea of why that happened.
Chair Miller,
I told them that eventually things would be okay. That I had hope that we would kind of reverse that, and it happened. I'm hoping that maybe that happens with this, although it seems very unlikely.
maybe for benefit, the driver's license, just at 101 on what that is. So we understand what you just said.
With the Real ID Act, we actually voted to not issue any license. The driver's license became connected to your citizenship in the country, things like that.
Chair Miller, we tied it into your legal status within the country, and a lot of people were unable to successfully go to DMV and renew licenses that they had. So as people's licenses expire, they never showed up again. And so this caused further anxiety within the labor workforce at the bottom of the pool. Let me reiterate that to our immigrant workforce.
It was pretty terrible.
It was pretty terrible.
Went down.
As people lost the ability to drive legally, they then, for risk of being picked up, just by being normal driving citizens, they quit driving. So this then made it harder for them to show up to work. As the pool of legal licensee drivers shrunk, the need and demand for more of them to carpool, bigger groups of people skyrocketed and made it a little bit harder for those that were at the mercy of somebody else with a license to drive.
Wow.
We I think 2 years ago we went back and voted that down, and so now those folks are able to apply again without
They didn't
having
vote
having.
it down. It kind of snuck through. Fortunately, it didn't go to a vote because it could have happened again.
Yeah, and it's always something that's been a factor for those at the bottom.
My only point in bringing that up was that they were kind of like thrown off, like who brought this about? You know, where does this stuff keep coming from? You know, nobody talks to us. You know, the people that it affects the most directly.
Mm.
In this case, their overtime hours, or just their pay. You know, people are build their lives around a certain lifestyle, and you know, they buy cars according to how many hours they're working, and they live in houses, they have their family here based on how much they're making. You know, it's going to be a real shock to see how people deal with it.
Yeah. Right. Other comment can be this, or it sounds like there's some agreement that we've got some issues here that we need to focus on. But again, Director Boyer, as you said, you hear from the farm workers. As I hear from workers, they are really upset because again, at least from our standpoint, it's boy, can we work more hours? And if the numbers aren't there to pay time and a half to work the more hours, then they have to look at a supplemental income for that. And I don't know how the labor contractors are working through that other than maybe setting up different legal entities, which is not really what we all wanted to have happen, I think. So I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding. So,
Chair Miller, you bring up a really good point, and Director Boyer, the well intent of the issue, while legally from Salem, it sounded like a great idea, and implementing that, it has become kind of a hard thing to work into everybody's system. And I'm not just speaking particularly to my ag sector, but I think across the board collectively. And you both hit on a really good point of, did anybody give the folks at the bottom of this a seat at the table? And my honest answer is I don't believe so. And of those that were trying to get a seat at the table, I don't believe that they were really taking into real consideration with a direct impact of what would happen on both sides of the world. Those that would be having to then turn around to their clients and bill more, and then also those that were having to turn around to their teams and say, this is the new ruling that's coming down. And it's painful. It's going to be painful as we work through it, but nothing is forever, in my opinion. So there's plenty of space for us to be able to make these changes happen. And I do believe that you guys are right with, we should come up with some way to have a core group of those folks have a voice. And it would be warranted for us to be able to give them the time and space to do that. So changing subjects a little bit.
thanks, Director Lopez. Go ahead.
Changing subjects a little bit, on top of that being something that I think we all kind of shake our head at and say, yeah, that's consensus. The other two that come to mind for me are land, zoning, and also water. Water, as we get into these changes of climate, water is becoming the most important aspect of specifically to agriculture, and also the ability to not just service agriculture, but the sprawling metropolitan areas that we have coming out of Portland into the communities outside of it. And also there's a lot of beauty in our state, and people are starting to realize that. So they're starting to move out of those large population areas into smaller cities. And so that's also putting a taxing component onto those water systems. And again, touches agriculture at every step. So those are things that come to my mind.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Director Harper.
I definitely have Brian Harper for the record. The ag overtime is it's horrible. My employees do not like it. We've got 80 years of experience on our farm. I mean, Josue, he's been there 32 years now. His brother about 20, and a couple others approaching that length of time. But you keep people that long because you're doing something right, and farming's not easy, and it's you become really more of a family. So it's easy to offend the people you work with closest, every day. They're friends or family, and you can butt heads a little bit here and there, but even still through all that, they still think they're coming back. And, I think every farm that's had good employees, they have been attempted to be poached, as we kind of say. And, there's loyalty because, yeah, we might not be paying overtime. The wages might be lower, but with at least our operation, we compensate by, giving private loans when they want to do something, buy some property back home in Mexico, or help them get into a house or a vehicle, and even a bonus schedule that fits with where the income comes from. And, Capital Press did come out and meet with my employees, which is pretty cool. I got a call from Sierra with Capital Press, and I've been interviewed by her on certain topics before, but she knew that I had employees and wanted to hear from them as to what they thought about it. And their consensus was we would prefer we stayed on, kind of the payment plan that we're on, the wage, setup that the farm has going. And I've had to shorten hours, and that's something that's worried them. I mean, they're getting older. Their health isn't quite like it was when they're, 19, 20 something years old. And they're a little worried. One of them's now diabetic, and that's gotten to be expensive for him. And we try to make it up where we can, but boy, everything's getting more expensive. I mean, costs are up, a lot. Filbert prices are in the toilet. That doesn't help. And interest rates are stinking high. So, I mean, their margin, in Filbert's is gone. We got nothing. So, it's just, there's one more thing, just making us less competitive, like you say. But we do need to, I think, hear from our employees. It's a big pool, and there's a lot of opinions that would fit with how we're speaking about it.
Director Johnson has had her hand up, so I'm going to move. Thank you, Director Harper.
Hey, Shante Johnson. I know that this topic is really complicated at best, but when thinking about some of the root causes of this issue, I think about the fact that we don't really talk about the true cost of farming. Like, folks that are purchasing goods, agricultural goods, are often, to be competitive, people have to lower their rates a lot of the time. And so thinking about that, but also thinking about like overtime for employees, farm workers. Yes, we should definitely be asking the folks that are most impacted, but also like farm owners and things like that are at an advantage where you don't have to pay overtime for some of the things that you're benefiting from. And so I would definitely be interested in hearing more from farm workers and getting their perspective, because yes, they do have families to support and things like that. And it's really hard to attract employees, to be honest with you, young people that want to get into the industry and grow with it. If they're not even barely making minimum wage or just a little bit above that, I mean, it's very hard to find labor at like $10 an hour or $15 an hour. I'm finding on our farm, we're having to pay people, quite a bit more to be able to compete. Now, I am not on the scale of, I don't have 100 employees or have some of the costs or manage, quite a bit of land. I have about 20 acres, but I think that we definitely need to be paying agricultural workers more and getting some support for some of our owner operators to meet some of those demands. So, I mean, it's an ongoing conversation. It is ongoing because it's complicated. It's not it's not really cut and dry either. And I realize that. So I definitely would be interested in hearing more from some of the farm workers, because as it stands, it definitely benefits owner operators more to not have to pay overtime.
Thank you, Director Johnson. I don't know if Director Orm, you wanted to weigh in before Director Lopez had his hand up yet or not. and other subjects certainly too.
So, Eric Orm, for the record, I am going to sway off that the labor talk for just a minute and just maybe give a different perspective from Eastern Oregon, more relating maybe to the family farm issue that Lauren brought up. Just for a quick overview, currently in Eastern Oregon, crops are harvested. We were about 75% of average, so below due to lack of rainfall. Fall seeding is mostly done, and what's in the ground is up and growing for the winter. Calves are all mostly weaned, and everyone's moving cows home for the winter. One of the things for us this year, as most of you know, we're first generation farming operation. We are working on transitioning our son Matt into the farm. He just finished college this spring. That comes with its own battles. I found that it's very hard to, one size does not fit all. What I can ask 5 close friends that farm multi-generational farms, and none of them transition the same way. You stack on top of that current input costs, labor issues like we're talking about, and then our commodity prices, wheat and hay prices down. Fortunately, our cattle prices are up this year to kind of offset that. I will tell you that we pay high school kids with no experience $20 an hour for harvest help. That's way above minimum wage, but it is hard to cut them come Thursday when they're over their 55 hours because of the overtime. And just to remind everybody on labor, in ag, we are price takers. We don't get to pass on the price like every other business that we do business with. All of our vendors, when they and always have paid overtime, they pass that cost on to us, whether it's the barge company that hauls our wheat to the river, or the co-op that hauls our wheat, or the barge company that hauls it to Portland, or the co-op that hauls our wheat to the river to put on the barge. They are upping their rates based on overtime costs, fuel surcharges, everything else, and we do not pass any of that on. I would love to go into the co-op and say, you're going to give me $1 more a bushel so that I can cover my overtime costs and I can cover my fuel costs. Finally, and that leads to interest rates. Right now, in my 20 years of farming, interest rates are higher than they've ever been. Some will compare them to the interest rates of the late 70s, early 80s. Yes, they're probably a little more than half of what it was then. Instead of 18%, we're at 10%. But if you take 18% of a $50,000 combine in 1980, and you take 10% of a $500,000 combine in 2023, just do the math. You'll figure out it's about 5 times as much or more in interest costs. And so that access to capital for the young and beginning farmers and just keeping up is difficult. And then on a whole different level, just the solar energy facilities on tillable ground is becoming more and more an issue, just like our public comment period. It's happening in our area, which diminishes opportunity for the young and beginning farmers also. So that's where we're at in Eastern Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Orem. Other comments? Director Lopez, and then, yes.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Yeah, so Director Orem and Johnson both hit on something that I forgot to mention, and that is, yes, we are price takers. And for far too long, we have had to suffer as price takers. And I think with everything that has happened in the last 3 years, it's a great opportunity for us to, as agriculture, stand together and say, yes, we would like to actually get paid what we need to get paid in order for all of us to have successful, healthy lives, but also not just us as owners, our teams as well. Director Harper hit on a good note of loyalty. That's amazing. That's great. We all have some core group of folks within our teams that have done that for us. And in the long run, even us providing them with alternatives to not having them meet with the wages they should have correctly all the way, it weighs on us. So I think that those two things that they hit on, those three things that they hit on, were accurately describing where agriculture is and what it needs to grow into, in my opinion. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Lopez. Director Boyer?
So I'm really concerned about the threat of agriculture, the land, our land use system. It's not just solar, it's all kind of non-farm uses that are happening right now. And I have the benefit of sitting on LCDC, and we are reviewing all of the non-farm development on EFU land. So I'm really thrilled that we're looking at all the non-farm uses, and we'll be bringing some recommendations to LCDC in January. So stay tuned of what the work group comes up with. I think I heard last night from Jim, we have 74 issues we're going to be bringing forward to this commission. And the other thing is there's a lot of cases that are being codified in favor of agriculture, and we need to be highlighting that. I don't think we're using that enough in some of our statements. So I'm very concerned about the threats on EFU.
Okay, thank you. Director Orm, are you okay? I had one other area to just highlight, and it seems like this has been a little bit of a downer, but maybe this was a venting we needed to do over time. So appreciate everybody's input. But one other subject is obviously the climate change, the challenges that we're facing, lots of uncertainty that we've got, and again, I think Oregon has done a really, really good job at meeting some needs that were unmet from federal programs. But at the same time, there's still unmet needs. And I'll just give an example that is a small one, but it's very impactful. Personally for us is the fact that depending upon the program, you may not have the volume generated in order to qualify for, let's say, crop insurance, for example. And so there's a hole there. And if you don't qualify for that, then you basically have no insurance. And at the same time, if you are growing a commodity that you want to make sure is highly marketable and of high value and high quality, you just may have to just not harvest if there's some impact from issues, whether it be issues for other weather issues, fire, etc. And I won't go into big detail, but there still are really, really big holes. So to the extent I think Oregon's been a leader in trying to assist inspiring the federal government to look at specialty crops more so than they had in the past and where holes may be, but there's still some huge holes. And I was very proud that the Oregon Department of Agriculture stepped up with the e-board, what was it, 2 years ago on the heat dome. And Jonathan, you helped really lead that effort to get some things done. But there are times when in agriculture, we don't want to have any tarnish on a commodity. So we may not necessarily say there's an issue when there is a huge issue. So it's just how to deal with that over time is something I think we need to think about as we go forward. So that's one other subject of the challenges of climate change as we go. So any other comments? And I'll Deputy Director Henderson, you have your mic down, so I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'm not sure this is what exactly you wanted, but.
No, Chair, no. Oh, did you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Director Johnson does have her hand up again. So Director Johnson.
I'll just be really brief because I know for sake of time, but something that's been on my brain a lot is around land access and, the future generation around, creating that pipeline into agriculture specifically for youth and getting them excited about the industry. And so I know that there's going to be a huge change of hands, something that we talk about. We all know the average age of the farmer is about 60 years old. And, in the future, I would love to see more focus on that. I realize we have FFA programs and there are some schools doing some amazing things, but for the future of ag, I think it's absolutely important that we get more BIPOC students engaged and excited about agriculture. So I'm happy to be a part of that work and see other organizations working on that. But I know with the high cost of land, it's making it also nearly impossible for folks to thrive in agriculture as well. So that is definitely an issue that's close to my heart. But yeah, that's all I was going to add.
Thank you. And let's close because we do need to have a hard stop at 11. So Director Henderson and Deputy
Thank you,
Director
Chair Miller.
Henderson.
I'll see if I can put a little positive spin on this. One, this didn't have a defined agenda when I had originally thought about it. It was just really for you guys to have a conversation. Two, I thought it could be a little bit of a venting, a little frustration. Nothing that you said today is nothing that I've not heard in the last couple years. It is on the top of people's minds. I know there are some other things, but I will just close if I could with this. The one thing that we don't do very well is every time I've had someone talk to me about that, I've asked them, and I asked Terry and Shannon what they were doing with their place. There are some folks out there that are doing some amazing adaptive things on their places. Nobody knows it though, and nobody tells the story. I don't think we really tell enough of that and what people do. And then when I reiterate that to folks, they go, agriculture is doing that? Yes, they are. It doesn't matter if it's 5 acres or 5,000. And so I would just encourage the board to balance some of these things with what people do. When you get people individually on their farm in the place, and I'm so proud of our governor. She has taken the time out in the counties to visit with some farm families. And I believe every one of those visits has been truly enjoyable and a learning experience for everybody that was involved. I've heard some very good things about that. So I hope you guys at least enjoyed this little piece. And if you want to do more of it, certainly that you work through the chair to do that or not. And then we can go from there and enjoy our tour today.
Great. Well, again, thank you, everybody. And again, I think we will have this. We may do kind of thematic things or something, but any input you have on how to approach this was kind of our first time looking at this, but it can, I think, help us in setting agendas as we go forward. So next steps, we are breaking for our luncheon tour. We need, as a board, we need to meet no later than 11:10 out front and we're going to basically be on tour and then going to an amazing place I've heard for dinner. So if everybody can be down at 11:10 tomorrow, we have, and this is something that, thank you, Carla, for starting for us a ways back, but we've got a coffee with local community folks starting at 8:15. And then the actual board will convene in session at 9 o'clock tomorrow. So 8:15 coffee with anybody local that is wanting to join us. And so we'll be down here for that tomorrow. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate all the comments and look forward to tomorrow and this afternoon's. Thanks.